If you were with us for episode one, this is a review. If you did not watch episode one, no worries, you can catch up very quickly. That we discussed in the first episode the importance of ruling out any sort of physiological issues that we could be having, that we want to make sure there isn't something medically going on that's keeping us from being able to get the type of sleep that we want. And then as a baseline, being able to track how many hours of sleep that we're getting. So it's going to be the continuous hours of sleep, being able to track when we are waking up throughout the night, being able to track how long it takes us to fall asleep. So being very clear in the assessment of what your sleeping habits look like. And then we also discuss being able to identify the challenges to your good sleep. That we can think about ways to practice better sleep. But first, before we can then implement new strategies we need to understand what the issues with our sleep are. And then finally, we discuss being able to reflect on the last time you slept well. Because it's not always about implementing something new, sometimes it's just going back to habits that we used to have. I used to be a very strong sleeper and had very little issues with sleep, could definitely lay it down. But now, in reflection, my sleep has likely been disturbed for at least 7 years. At least 7 years. So I had a knee injury, which made it difficult for me to work out the same way that I was. And I was having a hard time adjusting to a different exercise schedule. Not being able to exercise absolutely would affect my sleep and my energy levels. And then becoming pregnant, I had one of those types of pregnancies. So the pregnancy was rough, and then the sleep patterns of my twin daughters, that impacted my sleeping. That even if I was tired or if I was sleeping, my sleep was going to be disturbed with 2 hour, 1 hour, 30-minute feedings. And that just continued on with me having disturbed sleep, even after my daughters were sleeping more regularly. Post that, then life stressors kicked in, and I would wake up in the night thinking about different things or had a really hard time falling asleep because of life things that were stressing me out. So, because of those things, my physiological issues with my knee, the sleep schedule being thrown off because of pregnancy, and life stressors, I developed poor sleep habits where literally I had to think back to when did I actually used to sleep or what did sleep used to look like for me? And I forgot the things that I was actually doing that allowed me to get to sleep, that allowed me to successfully go to sleep. So it's important to recognize those things because, again, a lot of things I'm not going to have to do brand new. Many of the things that can help to improve my sleep is getting back to the things that I was doing before my sleep was disturbed. We won't cover all the consequences of disturbed sleep, but we will discuss some of them, with one of the main consequences being we feel tired. We feel exhausted. I want to go to sleep. My body is so tired that we're experiencing daytime sleepiness, and our body's just not moving the way that we want it to be moving. And we could be falling asleep or have that strong desire to fall asleep. And there can be some serious consequences too that there's been numerous studies that have shown that driving while tired, driving after 20 hours of deprivation of 20 or more hours is as dangerous, if not more so, than someone who has a blood alcohol level of zero point zero 0.08, which in most states is going to land you with a DUI. So if we are tired, we can actually be driving impaired. So very important to consider the fatigue and exhaustion we feel. A lack of sleep can impact our mental health and can cause mood changes. The one thing that is connected to disturbed sleep is higher levels of cortisol, and cortisol is going to be that stress hormone. So, if we're feeling stressed, our cortisol levels increase, it could be harder for us to go to sleep. And then we could actually be stressed about not sleeping, which then can increase our cortisol levels. So, all these things combining together to make it harder for us to sleep because our cortisol levels and our stress levels have increased. If we are experiencing sleep deprivation, we can find that we're having memory and concentration issues, that it's just harder for us to recall the things that we need to recall or bring up the things that we're trying to think about, say, complete. A mood issue or change that we can experience could be greater levels of irritation, anger, frustration. I tell my kids this all the time. Before 8 o'clock, great mommy. patient mommy, understanding mommy. After 8 o'clock, mommy is shutting down. Her body is shutting down. My irritation is higher. So it's very clear to me that as I'm becoming more fatigued, I'm becoming more irritable, where things that wouldn't bother me at 7 o'clock, I am irritated with those things at 8 o'clock because I'm starting to become tired. And that with our mood changes and mental health, we know that um, sleep issues and sleep disturbances, they cut across most mental health concerns. That if someone's experiencing depression, oftentimes they are sleeping too much or they're not able to fall asleep. If they're experiencing anxiety, they're having disturbed sleep. If we've had some sort of trauma in our life, it can be harder for us to sleep, or we may be avoiding sleep together. Individuals who have ADHD, their sleep can be disturbed. So a common symptom of across most mental health issues are our sleep is being disturbed, and that if we can improve our sleep, then there's a chance too that we can improve that mental health issue and concern. And there's a number of physical health issues that are connected to our disturbed sleep too. And one of those things being a decrease in our immune system, that we're getting sick more often. Our body is not getting the opportunity to recover and heal the way that it needs to. Our immune system is not getting the support that it needs to function the way that we want it to. So we're becoming sick more often. When we're not getting the sleep that we need, we can experience weight gain. Well, one reason is that if we're not sleeping, there's a chance that we may be up eating when we don't want to be eating, or if we were sleeping, we wouldn't be eating those things. So gaining weight that way. But then also the weight gain being connected to the hormones, again, those stress hormones that are being released in our body, that our body, it just loves to hold on to stress fat in different ways than it holds on to the regular fats that we are taken into our bodies. So it can be harder for us to lose weight because that stress fat is different from the fat that we're storing when we're not experiencing those levels of stress. Sleep issues are connected to physical issues with our heart. So, having more cardiovascular issues, high blood pressure connected to disturbed sleep. And then there's a host of other issues that are connected to our disturbed sleep. Dementia and Alzheimer's, we've seen a connection between disturbed sleep and these neurological issues. Hormonal problems can result from our disturbed sleep, higher levels of prediabetes and diabetes, all connected to disturbed sleep. So we can see very well how closely aligned our sleep is to our mental health, our physical health, our concentration, and just our general energy levels. In the next episode, we're going to talk about things that you can do to improve your sleep and some newer, different ideas that you may not have used for your sleep. But I can't stress and highlight enough the importance of, before we are bringing in new things, of doing things that were once established and getting those things reestablished. Of being able to go back to things that once were effective for us that can be effective for us today. That again, life came up and we lost track of that. We developed poor sleep habits. We forgot what we were doing. Maybe something was working for us in terms of our sleep, but now it's not working for us. To get back to things that we once did, we can implement things that once worked for us and they can be effective for us today. And even if all those things cannot be effective, or you can't re implement all these things, what can you re-implement? What's one thing that you can do? What are the multiple things that you can do? So we're not going to be focused on the things that we can't change or the things that aren't working for us. What can work for us and what has worked for us in the past. Again, I think about my own life. Like I said, my sleep has been disturbed for 7 years. But before these 7 years of disturbed sleep, I was a very good sleeper. I was a very peaceful sleeper. And thinking about back to that time that I was sleeping better, some of the things that stand out for me that I can implement now is I had a bedtime. I went to bed because I had to be at work in an office somewhere. For me to get 8 hours of sleep or so, there was a certain time I had to go to bed. So I was going to bed by 10 or 11 p.m. Now, working from home, I don't have that same issue and don't require that same structure. So that has thrown off my sleep pattern. But that's not okay. Even if I am working from home, it is important that I still have a bedtime. So, something that I can implement for myself is reestablishing a bedtime and sticking to it. And then having a bedtime routine. In the past, I would take a shower, brush my teeth, put on pajamas. Again, since my sleep has been disturbed, Sometimes I get in that shower, sometimes I do not. I am not sleeping in pajamas. I might just be sleeping in some sweats or whatever is closest to me. I'm not actually going to sleep. I'm just falling asleep. I might be falling asleep on the couch versus actually being in the bed. So, what I can re implement is taking a shower, brushing my teeth, putting on pajamas. These are all things that can be within my control. And then in the past too, when I would wake up or before I'm going to bed, I'm not on my phone. So something that I can implement again is minimizing my screen time before I go to bed. And should I wake up at night, not hopping on the phone, not checking to see what time it is on my phone, and now I'm being stimulated to do something else. So having a bedtime, getting back to some of my bedtime routine, and staying off my phone, these are all things that I can re-implement. Okay, so go back and think about when I was sleeping better, what were the things that I was doing? And what are one or more things that you can re implement to get yourself back on that path to well sleep? Thanks for joining me on today's episode. We have reviewed our sleep patterns that we recognize the pearls of not being able to sleep well, of having disturbed sleep. We know the benefits of sleeping, and we're all going to work together to reestablish sleeping patterns that once were effective for us. See you tomorrow.